Good morning. Good morning. I hope you'll join me in singing some Giving Voice to the Spirit songs this morning. And the first one is, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle, sisters, brothers all. Every round a generation, every round a generation, every round a generation, sisters, brothers all. On and on the circle's moving, on and on the circle's moving, on and on the circle's moving, sisters, brothers all. This next one, I believe, is put to music of a Native American prayer. Now I walk in beauty. That's a little low. Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me. And in recognition of this being a celebration of pride in our community, please join me with We Are a Gentle, Angry People. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are LGBTQIA and plus, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are LGBTQIA and plus, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are allies in the struggle, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are allies in the struggle, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Good morning. Welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church, a community of folks bound together not by creed, but by covenant, living into the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. I'm Dana Boyle, and I use the pronouns she, her, and I'm a member of the board of directors. If you have a request for today's meditation, please place it in the bowl or in the chat box on Zoom before the opening hymn. A special welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time today. We're very glad you're here. We hope that you will fill out a guest card to let us know a little bit more about you by following the link in the chat box or by finding a yellow card at the Welcome Center just outside the door. Please remember that our service next week, July 3rd, will be pre-recorded and available on our YouTube channel. So there will be no in-person or virtual Zoom worship, but we will have Cyber Social Hour, which will be led by Reverend Roger beginning at 11 a.m. And as Reverend Jack shared last week, there's a twist on our in-person social hour for the next few months. Our summer program for children and youth will be happening in the social hall across the way, while folks are in here. And after the service, we ask that you wait until the social hall doors have opened to enter into that sacred space. Then, during the social hour time, folks will have multiple options. People of all ages are invited to stop by the 4 different centers around the social hall to see what the youth have been up to. The topics are art, soul work, story, and ritual/practice. Feel free to engage the prompts at each center. And for the usual 20-minute small group conversations, we ask that you sit in one of the 2 tables in the middle of the room. Your group may decide once it gathers to go outside or to go to a different space inside the church. And starting today through the rest of the summer, we'll have a community-built flower arrangement for each Sunday service. And miraculously, it always looks great. So please bring a single stem or a sprig, or someone brought a vine that added everything to it this morning. Bring it before the service, and the vase will be down there with an extra pair of scissors. Our nursery will fully open to children 6 months through 3 years old, and you're welcome to stop by the nursery after the service today to welcome back our nursery coordinator, Jenna, to register your child and to learn more. Welcome to our church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love.
Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes, for here you need not hide nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place.
Good morning. I'm Ellie Rogers, and my pronouns are she, her. If the list of what could harm us seems longer to you than the list of what can save us some days, you're not alone. There's plenty of bad news, Sometimes I fall into doom scrolling on Twitter and emerge dazed and overwhelmed with a fresh litany of what's going wrong. Just the other night on the radio, climate change caused flooding and excessive heat warnings, markets tumbling and prices inflating, a surging hate group in our country. On Friday, a ruling against the basic human right of bodily autonomy. In the summer of 2020, partly to divert myself from pandemic anxiety, I signed up for a class on joy, a poetry workshop on Zoom that encouraged us to write poems about joy even in hard times, especially in hard times. One poem we studied, by Ross Gay, reveled in the abundance of a fig tree in Philadelphia, a city like most, he explains, which harbors police brutality. The joy in the poem rose right up alongside that fact and showed us something else there too, something that can save us, generosity and presence between strangers growing into a happenstance celebration. I still love that poem. I loved the whole class. Each week, I found myself excited for the next one. I've got joy tomorrow, I'd say to my partner. The workshop came to be about more than poetry. Our teacher noted that joy is inextricable from pain. The poems she showed us held both, just like each day can hold both. Our teacher also told us, write the poem you need to read. I think that is what can save us from the real, deep grief and even from the problems themselves. Write the poem you need to read. Can we create and offer each other and ourselves what we need through imagination and art, through generosity toward the stranger, through mindful attention to the extraordinary in the mundane, through celebration, through action, yes, action too. We light the chalice today for the joy we can make, even in the face of it all, that can guide us through. Please join me in the opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Hope you'll join me in singing hymn 396, I Know This Rose Will Open. If you're looking for the music, it's in the gray hymnal. And we'll sing it as a round, in two parts. First, we'll sing it all together one time through, and then we'll sing it twice more in round. And we'll do it in 2 parts. And I see Dick has reminded me that we can stand as you are willing or able to sing. Thank you, Dick. So the first group, once we've sung it all together, group number 1 will be from the center aisle over there, and you'll just keep singing it twice more. This group will come in with me and sing it twice, okay? So here we go. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose. I know this rose will open. I know my soul will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. Thank you.
I'm Assistant DRE Nico Van Ostrian, and my pronouns are they, them. Today, I'd like to share a story with you about our chalice symbol. This is the story of how Unitarian Universalists came to light a chalice at the beginning of every worship service, every religious education class, every time we gather into sacred space together. And this, like many of our stories, is one we've told over and over again. So today I'm telling a combination of many tellings put into one by Amy Peterson Derrick. Once upon a time, not all that long ago, there was a great land over a great sea. It was not a time of peace in that great land. It was a scary time, and there was a war, a great big world war. And it became known, even to those across the great sea, that there were people in this war-torn land that were in danger. They needed help escaping to safety. But there were many people who believed that we couldn't or shouldn't travel across the great sea to help, that it was too dangerous, or it just wasn't our job. But some people disagreed, including Unitarian minister named Reverend Charles Joy. Reverend Joy believed that we shouldn't wait when there are people in danger, that we should help them get to safety, even if it meant taking risks ourselves. So he and a group of Unitarians traveled across the great ocean to the great land, and they got to work. Reverend Joy and his team reached out to anyone who would listen, anyone who could help provide safe passage or money, transportation, anyone who believed as strongly as they did in the possibility of safety for those in danger. But the minister and his team ran into a problem. No one knew who they were. So why would anyone trust them to get into safety in a time with so much danger? Not only that, but many of the people they were trying to help did not speak the same language as one another. The minister needed help. So what did he do? He reached out to an artist named Hans Deutsch, who himself had escaped from danger and was far away from his home country. But Hans Deutsch was inspired by the minister and his team, so he got to work. He drew a picture of a cup, a chalice symbolizing healing and safety, and the flame on top symbolizing sacrifice and justice. This chalice symbol helped Reverend Joy and the Unitarians working with the Unitarian Service Committee to lead thousands to sanctuary, to safety, away from the war. And after the end of the war, Unitarian and then Unitarian Universalist churches all over the country and the world heard this story, and they started lighting a chalice whenever they gathered. When we light our chalice together in our religious education classes, when we remind our children that we are entering into special sacred time together, light is blessing our space, we are calling ourselves into the work of our faith community together. No matter where we are, our chalice symbol reminds us of our call to be a beacon of hope and justice, sanctuary, and love. May we carry that light with us wherever we go. It is now time to sing again, so please rise in body or spirit to sing Go Lift It Up, which is number 1057, as our youth leaders and children who are registered for religious education head out to the social hall across the way for summer programming.
Thank you.
Not surprisingly, road construction caused some lateness today, which is the story of this church right now, right? Let's share in some time of reflection, meditation, and prayer. And so I invite you to get comfortable in your body and your space, wherever you are, and your interior self. Today we come together as a congregation with about 75 people in this space and another 80 households tuning in through Zoom. This morning, we hold in our hearts all those who are struggling with challenges in their own lives, with challenges in our nation, with challenges in the world. We hold in our hearts those who are feeling hopeless in the face of all that ails our world and nation. May we make room in our hearts even amidst the enormity of it all. Today we especially hold those who are grieving, who are struggling with mental or physical illness, addiction, war, poverty, and oppression. We hold in our hearts all those people who long ago, in recent times, and within these last months, have sought refuge in this home. Today we especially hold White Bear UU member Sarah Trouts in our heart after the death a week ago of her husband, Bill. May Sarah and her family feel solace in her grief and joy in Bill's good and long life. With Joyce Leslie, we also lift up today Nance McLeslie's mom, who is dealing with cancer and its side effects. Today we also celebrate with our Matamidi neighbors at St. Andrew's Lutheran Church their celebration of their centennial, an amazing thing for that congregation. And now into this shared silence, I invite you to say aloud the names of others that you are holding in your heart this morning. Amen.
Today's offering is an outreach offering that will support refugees who have arrived recently from Afghanistan. We, along with several other area UU congregations and Moose Jaw, are coordinating our efforts with Lutheran Social Services. Your contributions will be sent to LSS and will help the family that WBUUC is working with, as well as other refugee families with costs they are incurring getting settled in this new and very different place. As always, you can donate in 3 ways. Either on the WBUUC webpage, you may send a check or leave a check in the locked box that's outside the front door near the office, or you may use the text to give option that's on the screen here and also on Zoom. No matter how you give, please indicate the keyword Afghan, and thank you for your generosity and faith in this life that we lead together.
The reading is Blessing When the World is Ending by Jan Richardson. Look, the world is always ending somewhere. Somewhere the sun has come crashing down. Somewhere it has gone completely dark. Somewhere it has ended with the gun, the knife, the fist. Somewhere it has ended with the slammed door, the shattered hope. Somewhere it has ended with the utter quiet that follows the news from the phone, the television, the hospital room. Somewhere it has ended with a tenderness that will break your heart. But listen, this blessing means to be anything but morose. It has not come to cause despair. It is simply here because there is nothing a blessing is better suited for than an ending. Nothing that cries out more for a blessing than when a world is falling apart. This blessing will not fix you, will not mend you, will not give you false comfort. It will not talk to you about one door opening when another one closes. It will simply sit itself beside you among the shards and gently turn your face toward the direction from which the light will come, gathering itself about you as the world begins again.
Rejoice.
This hard, long moment seems to keep getting harder and longer. On Thursday, the Supreme Court expanded the Second Amendment to require state and municipalities to allow concealed handguns in all public places except those narrowly and ambiguously defined as sensitive places. So in our nation that's awash already with some 400 million weapons, it's now even harder to have meaningful restrictions on guns. Whatever good will come from the meager law that Congress has finally passed this week will likely be outweighed by the implications of this ruling. And this is at a time when gun violence continues to escalate. Already this year, there have been something like, well, more than 250 mass shootings in the United States. And then on Friday, the Supreme Court eviscerated reproductive freedom. So I think I had wishful thinking since that leak, thinking, this won't happen. This right that has been enshrined for 50 years, that's not going to go away. They wouldn't turn their back on the precedent that's been set and then reviewed and reconfirmed over these past 50 years. Yes, the news flash blared. Yes, they will. And so I lament this decision. And I mourn for all the women and other impacted folks in their lives who will have the most personal, intense, sometimes painful decisions of their lives informed, if not forced, by the state. And once again, this will especially hit poor people harder who have the misfortune of living in the wrong state, who can't afford traveling to a different state for the option of getting the medication that enables abortion at home. It is unimaginable to me that fear of prosecution is going to guide this most personal and intimate decision. The unimaginable has happened. My granddaughters will have less reproductive freedom than my 70-year-old sister had in her 20s. My lamentation and anger are made worse by sensing that this is just the beginning of an activist reactionary court taking us back to the 1950s or 1850s. Justice Thomas wrote out loud what many conservatives seem to be thinking, that this decision will lead to the evisceration of other rights that they oppose, such as marriage equality and access to contraception. Sure, other conservatives on the court made the point of saying that no, this ruling applies only to abortion. The same people who lied in their confirmation hearings, evidently saying that they respected precedent. It feels to me like the right that matters today for people in charge of this country is the right to bear arms and not much else. So these Supreme Court decisions this week are on top of so many other terrible things. These past couple of years, a global pandemic made worse in the United States by anti-masking and anti-science. Increasingly successful attempts to suppress voting, especially of people of color. A dawning awareness among whites like me that this ongoing specter of police killing unarmed blacks and other people of color continues. A violent insurrection at our Capitol, the seat of government, that came within evidently feet and seconds of ending up with the Vice President of the United States being hung outside the Capitol. Consequences of global climate change that are coming much quicker than anticipated, even in the worst predictions of 10, 20, 30 years ago. A war that is devastating a nation which had newly emerged into freedom and has brought back worries of global nuclear war, Afghanistan, and the terrible tragedy there over the last year, culminating after 30 or 40 years. We don't have all day, so I'll stop there. No, actually, I'll add inflation and other economic developments that have exacerbated the gap between rich and poor in this country and in the world. Now I'll stop. The question that I keep finding myself asking is, when are we going to hit bottom? And I keep realizing in new and deeper ways that bottom doesn't seem to be anywhere in sight. I would have thought that a violent takeover of our capital, I would have thought that that might be bottom. I don't even think if the vice president had been captured by that crowd and hung outside in their homemade gallows that that would have been bottom. It feels like we might be nearer the beginning than the end of this long, hard struggle that's going to be on 100 different fronts with everything at stake. Our democracy, our freedom, our planet, our lives. Somehow this week I got to thinking about a blog post that I read last summer by a clergy person who compared navigating a church through a pandemic to running a marathon. Kind of resonated with me. So think back to last spring, early summer. The vaccine had been created and lots of people had gotten it. COVID numbers were going down. A lot of us breathed a sigh of relief. That 2-year-plus marathon finally seemed to be coming toward the end. And then, here's how Reverend Jenny Smith put it in this blog. Then she said, we opened our doors to in-person worship again. We crossed the finish line. We made it. We had done a hard thing. Then, instead of collapsing at the finish line in a heap, instead of drinking water, instead of resting our aching bodies, something else happened. An official-looking race organizer slapped on another number on our back and pushed us toward another starting line that mysteriously appeared. Wait, what? A second marathon right now? Yeah, a second marathon. So with COVID, that second marathon was the Delta variant. And then we got a third marathon, Omicron. Right now, we're in the fourth or fifth variant of Omicron. What's next? There's only 20-something letters in the Greek alphabet. Is that going to actually be enough? When will this end? And maybe this week I thought this sort of marathon metaphor for COVID is a good metaphor for all that ails our nation and world. We seem to be in an endless cycle of ever deepening challenges, one marathon after another after another. So what will save us now? How do we survive all this and resist the urge to plunge our heads into the sand and retreat into the plethora of distractions that are as readily available as our phone or screens? How do we dig deep enough to keep on fighting against sliding into fascism and violence and the destruction of our habitat? What will save us now? I'm asking this question for a friend. Oh, okay. Not really. I'm asking it for me. This sermon is for me. I hope some of you can relate to it, but I'm reminded of the chalice lighting. Ellie talked about writing the poem that you need to read. This is the sermon that I need to hear. Thank you for being part of this today. I'm weary. I'm discouraged. My heart aches for all that feels lost, for all those who are suffering. For my dear neighbor in Appleton, whose husband got COVID when he went to Walgreens to get his flu shot and was near people who were not maskers back in the fall of 2020 and who died within 2 weeks. My heart aches for the Ukrainians who are trying to rebuild their lives in places like Bucha, and Afghan refugees trying to rebuild their lives here and elsewhere in the world. My heart aches for the mothers and the loved ones of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Philandro Castile, and the list goes on, and the unknown woman in Louisiana or Alabama who will be forced to carry to term a fetus that was conceived in rape. In the face of all this, I can find a few things that might help. So I'm going to share those for me today. I don't expect any of these things to help on their own, but maybe together they'll help. Like Ellie suggested, we need to avoid doom scrolling. Doom scrolling. What a perfect, horrible new word in our vocabulary. I Googled doom scrolling after seeing it in a draft of Ellie's Chalice, and the first thing that popped up was an article from Wired magazine. The title was, "Doom scrolling is slowly eroding your mental health." And then it has a sentence underneath summarizing the article perfectly. "Checking your phone for an extra 2 hours every night won't stop the apocalypse, but it could stop you from being psychologically prepared for it." Find time and places to tend to your soul. I sure hope this church is one of those, the services, the programs, everything we do. My wife keeps sending me a link to a guided meditation that Thich Nhat Hanh did that was recorded on a YouTube video called Calm Ease. Is she trying to tell me something? Yeah, she is. So finally yesterday in my desperation, I actually listened to it. And it did actually help me feel a bit more grounded. I'll probably listen to that again. Calm Ease. You can find it. The spiritual writer Frederick Buechner writes about stopping and touching the coarse gray bark of a particular tree with his hand or even his cheek. And in doing so, asks the tree for its blessing. What a beautiful way to ground your soul. We also need to remember, all of us, that none of us are going to do it on our own, that the most we can do is to find our particular thing that evokes our passions, that uses our skills, and to dig into that and do our part. I think about the person who designed that chalice logo that was used that Nico talked about. I don't know who that was, but what a gift. What a doing a little thing that helped this rescue effort during World War II and has now become a symbol of our faith globally. In 2020, I found a small niche that felt like it helped me. I helped with the UU the Vote effort in Wisconsin in the election in 2020. You know, the difference in Wisconsin was 20,000 votes. UU the Vote contacted thousands of people. Maybe it was part of the difference. And maybe I was a little tiny part of that. Another thing we need to do is find instruction and solace and inspiration from marginalized people who have had it way worse for way longer than most of us in this room. For us who are in the dominant culture and not used to running marathon after marathon, these folks are wise teachers. Let's listen for their wisdom. They have found ways to stay in the struggle even when it goes on and on and on, and sometimes even when it feels like even a glimpse of the promised land of freedom and justice is never going to come. And finally, we need to try to find joy even when it's really hard to find. Maybe we all need to take a class in joy. As I shared in this week's reflection, we can take a hint from voting rights organizations led by people of color who insisted in 2020 on making joy a central part of their work. And one way they did this was by bringing food and water in a party atmosphere to some of those long polling lines that were created by voter suppression efforts. The engineers of Georgia's voter suppression machine knew this was a problem, which is why they passed legislation that makes it illegal for anyone besides an election worker to give water or food to people standing in the polling line. Some of those folks denied it, but when you read the bill, that is exactly what it says. They knew that stuff's dangerous. The good news is, I don't think you can make joy illegal. And I'm pretty confident the folks in these organizations are going to find new ways to practice joy. So these are some of the tools that I think will help save us, that will help us, in the words of the reading today, gently turn our faces toward the direction from which the light will come, gathering itself about us as the world begins again. We need to do our best to be present to the pain and the suffering and the joy, and to be part of this world beginning again. May we find our parts. Our closing hymn today is number 328, I Sought the Wood in Summer. And I thought of this hymn when I found that Frederick Buechner passage about putting the cheek or his hand on a tree to get the blessing. Let's join together wherever we are in rising in body or spirit and join in singing. 328 in the Big Gray Hymnal. For the closing words, you may be seated because it is slightly longer. It is a poem that really is the exclamation point to the sermon today. It's called Benediction, and it's by Bernadette Peters. May you taste the colors of sunset. May you touch the chorus of dawn. May your eyes turn toward the beauty even when it's gone. May you weave a path of blessing through ecstasy and grief. May you tend the flame within you. May you feel it with belief. May you feed it with belief. May you find yourself in strangers and meet them in you. May you trust that we are windows the world is peering through. May you linger in each moment, receiving with your heart the gifts of possibilities that presence can impart. May you go in peace.